Welcome back. And now for the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India has been taken over by the radical RSS ideology, which is inspired by Nazism. This report has the details.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan is in Malaysia on a two-day official trip. Speaking at the Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies in Kuala Lumpur, Khan said the BJP government is trying to exterminate Muslims in occupied Kashmir and India the way Hitler set out to eliminate the entire Jewish race. The Prime Minister warned of worsening situation in the occupied valley if the Muslim world stays silent. Khan told the gathering that New Delhi has annexed the valley and turned it into an open prison for the past 6 months. He said there is no link between Islam and terrorism.
When the Western leaders started calling it Islamic terrorism, we should have all objected. What had their act, the terrorist act, what had that got to do with Islam? There was no connection between Islam and those terrorist acts.
The Pakistani Prime Minister said the growing Islamophobia needs to be tackled by educating the new generation, especially non-Muslims, about the true face of Islam. Earlier, Malaysia's Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad and Khan signed an extradition treaty to enhance security cooperation. Speaking at a joint press conference, Khan thanked Mahathir for his unwavering support for the Kashmir cause.
Pakistan's President Arif Alvi says India must allow United Nations observers to monitor the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir. Addressing a seminar in Islamabad, he said Kashmir is an integral part of Pakistan and an unfinished agenda of subcontinent's partition. The valley has been reeling under India's lockdown and communications blackout since August last year. Earlier, the National Assembly unanimously passed a resolution calling on India to reverse the annexation of Kashmir. Meanwhile, preparations in Pakistan are in full swing to observe Kashmir Solidarity Day on Wednesday to highlight the plight of Kashmiris. Pakistan annually observes the day to remind the world community of its obligations towards the resolution of the outstanding dispute. Moving on, preparations in Pakistan are in full swing to observe Kashmir Solidarity Day tomorrow to highlight the plight of people of Indian-occupied Kashmir. Pakistan annually observes the day to remind the world community of its obligations towards the resolution of the outstanding dispute. Prime Minister Imran Khan will address a special session of Azad Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly in Muzaffarabad. Meanwhile, arrangements have been made to form human chains at all 6 entry points connecting Azad Kashmir to Pakistan. Pro-freedom leaders of occupied Kashmir have thanked Pakistan for its solidarity and support. The valley has been reeling under India's lockdown and communications blackout for the past 184 days. In the US, Seattle City Council, among the most powerful city councils in the country, has passed a motion against India's controversial Citizenship Act. The resolution was passed to express solidarity with the city's South Asian community, regardless of religion and caste. The council said it finds the legislation to be discriminatory to Muslims, oppressed castes, women and indigenous people. The council asked New Delhi to repeal the act and take steps to help refugees under UN resolutions. He said Seattle City's decision to condemn the law is a message to all who wish to undermine pluralism and religious freedom. The death toll by the new coronavirus has jumped to 427, with over 20,500 people infected. The virus has now spread to 27 countries. More in this report.
China's National Health Commission reported 64 new fatalities, the biggest single-day increase since the virus was first detected. Beijing has asked the US to provide assistance to tackle the disease as soon as possible, instead of criticizing its effort to combat the outbreak. Meanwhile, Hong Kong has reported its first death from the incurable disease, becoming the second casualty outside China. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam warned of serious consequences of the hospital workers' strike after the death.
The consequences yesterday were quite serious. Important services, critical operations have been affected, whether it is in the neonatal ICUs, in the isolation wards, or patients awaiting certain cancer treatments. All these have been affected.
Health officials said the patient suffered from sudden heart failure.
In Taiwan, 13 people have died in the last week from the H1N1 strain of swine flu. The Taiwanese government says 56 people lost their lives to the virus in the last 3 months. The government says in this season, there have been 750 swine flu cases with severe complications. Of the severe cases, 41% of the patients are over 65 years of age. Government data suggests 43 patients who died from the virus in the last 3 months were not vaccinated. Moving on, the UN Security Council says it will hear a closed-door briefing on Thursday from President Trump's advisor Jared Kushner on his Middle East peace plan. Speaking to reporters in New York, Council President Mark Pistine de Boitswerve said Kushner will speak to diplomats for an hour. Boitswerve said he hopes Kushner will answer questions and reservations surrounding the deal. The UNSC president said he wants the council to be united on the issue. He said the Security Council will also hold a meeting with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on February 11th. Last week, US President Donald Trump unveiled his controversial Middle East peace plan, sparking outrage from many countries. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has rejected parts of the US peace plan that would see Israel keep its settlements in the occupied West Bank. In a statement, Borrell reiterated that EU doesn't recognize Israeli settlements in the West Bank, East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. He said US President Donald Trump's proposals are contrary to internationally agreed parameters. Borrell added that steps towards annexation could not pass unchallenged. Unveiled by Trump earlier this month, the peace plan was welcomed by Israel, but has been widely criticized by Arab leaders. Meanwhile, Palestinians have termed the Sudanese head of state's meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu a stab in the back. Senior Palestinian official Saib Erekat denounced the meeting, saying it has outraged all Palestinians. Erekat called it a blatant departure from the Arab Peace Initiative at a time when Israel is trying to liquidate the Palestinian cause. Yesterday, Netanyahu met secretly in Uganda with head of Sudan's Sovereign Council, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Both the leaders agreed to work to forge normal relations for the first time. The meeting came on the day the Organization of Islamic Cooperation unanimously rejected US President Donald Trump's Middle East peace plan. The UN says it is alarmed by recent clashes between Turkish and the Syrian government forces in northwestern Syria. The international body has called for calm and pressed each side to return to negotiations. Speaking to media in New York, UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said the growing conflict threatens regional peace. Dujarric said the UN is in contact with officials in Syria, Turkey and Russia and urged them to de-escalate. He said the UN is also concerned by reports of civilian casualties and large-scale displacements. Yesterday, Turkey claimed it killed 76 Syrian soldiers in retaliation of 8 Turkish soldiers died in the shelling. Syrian state media says the artillery fire hit a natural gas plant in the south-central area of Homs, as well as the Abla gas plant. The United Nations has urged for talks with the armed groups in Mali, saying extra troops will not help the peace process. The head of a UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Mali said the country needs more political engagement. UN officials told journalists in Geneva Mali was at a watershed and complained of a lack of international support. Last year, the UN office in Mali received just 5% of $3 billion required for 14,000-strong peacekeeping mission. The United Nations says over 4 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance in Mali as security risks grow. Militant activities across Mali have displaced over 200,000 people, as many live without any government or defense mechanism. The World Health Organization says the first flight carrying critically ill Yemeni patients has left the rebel held capital, Sana'a. The UN body said the people will receive life-saving care not available in Yemen. It is the first such aid flight in over 3 years. The UN says 8 patients and their relatives took off for Amman in a UN-marked plane. The majority were women and children suffering with aggressive cancers and brain tumors. The WHO confirmed the medical evacuation is expected to continue with another 3 flights this week. Tensions are high in the Persian Gulf as Iran threatens to exit the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. But Iranian ambassador to Pakistan, Sayyid Mohammad Ali Hosseini, says Tehran will return to its JCPOA commitments if other signatories do the same. More in this report.
Iran is facing growing isolation over its stance on the 2015 nuclear accord as the deal's European signatories threaten to move the UN. At a strategic studies seminar in Islamabad, Iranian ambassador Sayyid Mohammad Ali Hosseini said Iran is the only country abiding by the pact. Hosseini called on all parties to honor and respect the Iran nuclear deal.
Every deal has 7 parties, and all parties should honor and respect this deal. Some countries have not respected it and have withdrawn from the deal. Despite that, we are committed to the peace and stability in the region.
He called on all regional states to join Iran's Hormuz peace endeavor for the sovereignty, security, and stability of the region.
We are inviting regional countries to participate in our peace initiative. We have shown maximum restraint even after the terrorist attack of the United States by assassinating Qasem Soleimani.
Iran has ruled out any possibility of bilateral talks with the United States unless it lifts all sanctions. But Washington has continued with its policy of maximum pressure by piling up further curbs on Tehran. Reporting for Indus News, Manahil Ahmed, Islamabad.
White House lawyers and Democratic House managers have wrapped up the closing arguments in President Donald Trump's Senate impeachment trial. The Republican-dominated Senate is largely expected to vote along party lines to acquit Trump on Wednesday. This report has more.
President Trump's acquittal is almost certain as a 2/3 majority is required in the Senate for a conviction. As it is, Republicans hold 53 seats to the Democrats' 47. Chief House Prosecutor Adam Schiff delivered an emotional speech, saying Americans cannot trust Trump to do the right thing.
Can we be confident that Americans and not foreign powers will get to decide, and that the President will shun any further foreign interference in our democratic affairs? And the short, plain, sad, incontestable answer is no, you can't. You can't trust this president to do the right thing, not for 1 minute, not for one election, not for the sake of our country.
Trump's lawyers flatly reject allegations against the president, who is accused of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. White House counsel Pat Cipollone said Trump did nothing wrong, calling the trial purely partisan and political.
We have an impeachment that is purely partisan and political. It's opposed by bipartisan members of the House. It does not even allege a violation of law. It is passed in an election year, and we're sitting here on the day that election season begins in Iowa. It is wrong. There is only one answer to that, and the answer is to reject those articles of impeachment.
Trump is just the 3rd president in U.S. history to be impeached by the House of Representatives.
It's time for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In the U.S., the Democratic National Committee has delayed the result of the Iowa presidential primary caucus. The DNC says the result of the first caucus in the primary race are subject to quality checks after reports of inconsistencies in 3 sets. A change in the rules since the 2016 race now requires a caucus to report 3 sets of numerical data instead of 2 for each count. The Iowa vote will offer a crucial early look at the viability of the 11 Democrats still in the race. Frontrunners Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and the former Vice President Joe Biden face a key test in the sparsely populated state. Only 41 delegates are up for grabs for candidates looking to pick up momentum early in the race. Turkey has again refused to recognize Russia's annexation of Crimea, branding it illegal. During a state visit to Kiev, President Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey supports Ukrainian sovereignty Erdogan said Turkey is closely monitoring the condition of Crimea's Tatar Turks and will continue to work with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he was grateful for Ankar's military and financial support. Zelensky also asked for Turkish support to secure the release of Ukrainians in Russian prisons, including the Crimean Tatars. The European Parliament has announced its strong support for the opening of talks that could lead to Albania joining the bloc. The Parliament's President David Sassoli said the process should resume despite a slowdown at the end of last year. At a joint press conference with Prime Minister Eri Rama, Sassoli said Albania's membership is as necessary as that of other Western Balkan countries. He said the country has made huge progress in line with the EU expectations. Rama called Sassoli a long-standing friend and a supporter of Albania's full integration into the European bloc. Campaigning for the May 3rd elections is underway in Bolivia. The Supreme Electoral Court says presidential and legislative candidates are allowed to raise support for their candidates. Exiled President Evo Morales' nominated the economy minister Luis Arce Catacora for his movement to socialism. Former President Carlos Mesa and Bolivia's current interim president Janine Áñez are among the candidates. Banned from running the presidency, Morales has registered as a Senate in Bolivia. His party leads opinion polls on 26% in a split field, despite a right-wing interim government in La Paz.
I want to take this opportunity to mention that the movement to socialism wishes to express its opposition and denounce the harassment that our delegate to the Supreme Electoral Court is receiving.
Bolivians will vote to elect 36 senators and 120 deputies. Now, moving on, Sri Lanka is celebrating its 72nd Independence Day. Celebrations include a ceremony under the patronage of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Independence Day ceremonies commenced in the morning at Independence Square in Colombo after President Rajapaksa hoisted the national flag. The president also gave a speech on the occasion. This was followed by a parade which included displays of the tri-forces and the cultural dances. 2 minutes of silence was observed before the ceremony to commemorate patriots who sacrificed their lives for Sri Lankan independence.
Sri Lanka is a country with an ancient history. It is a country that has been nurtured by the Buddhist philosophy and a country that has been a heaven for the people of all ethnicity and religious belief. During my term of office, I will guarantee the freedom of all persons to follow the religion of their choice.
In Ethiopia, the government is trying to attract foreign investment by offering cheap labor in textile factories. The country is looking to follow in China's footsteps by building a strong manufacturing sector to offer jobs for its young workforce. But despite high unemployment, young Ethiopians see things differently. Watch this report on what they have to say.
When Zeman Zarihun landed a job at a textiles factory in southern Ethiopia, he thought he had won a ticket to a better life. But just months later, he resigned.
It was very difficult. I suffered a lot at this company. We were made to work long hours for a laughable salary. It was exhausting.
These conditions have put off many more workers, feeding a growing disenchantment with the country's drive towards industrialization. Earning an average of just 23 euros per month, textiles workers in Ethiopia are among the worst paid in the world.
If wage is high and investment doesn't come, not new employment is going to be created.
And many manufacturing bosses are happy with the government's approach.
I never seen what we are getting the support from government of Ethiopia. I never get anywhere else.
Many of the workers being swept up in Ethiopia's drive towards industrialization come from rural and farming backgrounds. And so the concept of organizing into formal trade unions is taking a while to get off the ground. But things are gradually changing.
In the near future, we establish, I'm sure that no more than 2 months or 3 months, we establish a labor union in this industry park.
But it will take time for these unions to fully form and start exerting serious influence. And with youth unemployment still high in Ethiopia, factories have no problem replacing the disgruntled workers who decide to leave manufacturing behind.
Denmark has kicked off a 23-day light festival in Copenhagen. The festival brings some much-needed light and color to the dark and wintry Danish capital. Enjoy some spectacular scenes from the show in this report.
February is one of the darkest months in Denmark. The sun sets quite early with temperatures below zero. But at the Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, a light festival has brightened up the city. Children skate under a glittery winter umbrella made out of 1 million lights, while 11 swans swim in the lake around the dancing lights. A green laser beam stretches across the city sky to remind people to get out of home and enjoy the show.
It is so nice. I feel me like little child. I'm so happy that I seen it, and my Instagram is full of the light of the all these things. It's really, really very nice.
It's really nice, and it's the lights are really pretty to look at, and it creates a very cozy environment.
This is the third year that the festival is taking place. Guided boats, tours have been arranged to see the 60 light installations on bridges and buildings.
In this season, we try to add an art dimension to this. We have invited artists to celebrate the interior of Tivoli, bringing in artworks based on lighting, and it's working out well.
The festival will last throughout February.
The UK has been undergoing its worst slump in economic productivity in 250 years. A study by British academics suggests productivity was almost 20% below its pre-2008 level in 2018. It is the biggest slowdown since the Industrial Revolution. Professor Nicholas Crofts, co-author of the report, said there are no certain reasons behind the unprecedented slowdown. But Crofts said the unfavorable conditions include the end of the ICT boom, the implications of the financial crisis and Brexit. Crofts said Brexit undermined investment and diverted managerial time to contingency planning rather than productive activity. U.S. manufacturing activity has rebounded in January after a 5-month contraction. The Phase 1 trade deal signed between Washington and Beijing has contributed largely to the growth. The Institute for Supply Management says the U.S. Purchasing Managers Index rose by over 3% to 50.9. The report said U.S. GDP growth slowed in 2019 compared to 2018, reflecting diminishing fixed investment and downturn in exports. The US PMI had been stuck below the 50-point mark since August 2019. A reading below 50 indicates the manufacturing sector is contracting. Stock markets across Europe are trading higher as investors brush aside economic fears over the coronavirus outbreak. Major stock earnings led the gains as market sentiment improved. London's FTSE 100 is trading nearly 1.5% higher after shares of BP climbed at 3.5%. Frankfurt's DAX and Paris CAC 40 each gained nearly 1%. In Asia, Seoul's Kospi led the gains, closing nearly 2% higher. The Shanghai Composite gained over 1% after recovering from yesterday's crash. Hong Kong's Hang Seng gained 1% with shares of Tencent and Alibaba surging. In the meantime, the price of international benchmark Brent crude surged over 0.5%, powering early gains. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.